Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel and thanks for taking a little time out of your day to watch the video. Really appreciate it. And today I'm going to have a talk about how trail cams and live scopes are dumbing down the skills of the anglers and hunters here in America. And you know, we've talked about live scope a lot. Some people always say every time I bring it up, you're beating a dead horse, but this is a little bit different angle on it I want to talk about today. And a lot of it was what happened at the Bass Pro $1 million tournament this past weekend at Table Rock. If you guys saw the video that I did last week as far as the preview of it, you know, I predicted the tournament would get won and dominated by live scope, which it was. And also, this is the time of year when you start seeing all these trail cam pictures of big deer. So I want to have a little bit of conversation about that, how it's not a good thing. Neither one of these pieces of technology are a good thing as far as for anglers and hunters developing and keeping and not letting their skills atrophy. So I have a little bit of a conversation with that. I'm still got these bad allergies, so excuse me for my rough voice. So let's talk a little bit about the game cam deal. These game cams, I'm really disturbed. But you guys know, if you've watched the video, I don't hunt anymore. I haven't hunted in 35 years, but I used to be a fanatical hunter, hunted all the time. So I'm not coming at this as some anti-hunter that doesn't know what he's talking about. I've skinned and killed more deer and rabbits and birds than most people watching this video. From that standpoint here, I'm really disturbed about the advent of technology in hunting as well as fishing too. You know, game cams out there, basically, in my opinion, unless you're just a nature watcher, like taking pictures of deer and you want to see cool pictures of deer, that's one thing. But if you're using a trail cam to actually actively find areas where deer's at, I'm going to sort of explain to you my point on that. First of all, let's have a little lesson about what a real hunter is. And I'll go back to the Native Americans and sort of compare that to the way hunting is today. You know, thousands of years ago, this is how it went down for the Native Americans. Before they went, you know, let's say they were out deer hunting to try to get food for the, excuse me, for the tribe. They had to, number one, they had to nap their own arrowheads. They had to make their own bows or spears. And if they made a bow, a lot of times they'd go out there and they'd search for the perfect sapling for days on end. And only when they found what they considered the perfect sapling, you know, they would give thanks and gratitude for that sapling before they cut it down. It was a big process. Excuse me. They made the bowstrings out of fibers, either out of some type of, you know, tendons off of animals or some type of plant fibers. Again, napped the arrowheads, you know, made the bow and arrow and everything. And then after they made their equipment and learned how to use it right, they had to develop their tracking skills. And that's one of the things that angler or hunters now have basically lost their ability to track. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But for example, if they were out, you know, scouting for deer, you know, they would, being the expert trackers they were able to see the movements and the patterns of the deer and either set up in some type of an ambush point to take that deer. They were so good at tracking that they could actually, you know, see from the track information if a deer was injured or wounded or how big it was, you know, the mood and the personality of the deer, a lot of different, you know, pieces of information. And most of the time, they would go after the weakest of the herd. They'd go after either the deer that were wounded or have been injured in some way and weren't going to make it through the winter, or the ones that were on their way out. And flash forward to today, it's like people today go hunting, they try to get the biggest, strongest, you know, trophy deer that there is out there. This whole thing about, you know, being a part of the natural world and, you know, harvesting animals that aren't going to make it is simply out the window for most hunters. So anyway, after, you know, they tracked the animals, you know, found the ambush points and set up to take the animal with the gear that they had built by hand, only then that they would attempt to make the kill. Hunting today is not like that. I mean, hunting today, it's like you got these different type of technology out there that is completely divorced from what hunting actually is. I mean, people drive to their deer stands in these $15,000 Range Rover, or these, ATVs. They get in a heated deer stand that costs, $3,000 or $4,000 to make. They got their cell phones with it. They've got, these, $2,000 crossbows and bows and whatever to shoot the deer with. They've got their trail cams that have, showed them exactly the movements of the deer. Some people are even using drones, and it's not, and deer anymore. It's for so many hunters out there. It's not even deer hunting. It's like deer farming. I see these guys out there. They buy these big plots of land. They put giant food plots in. They put corn down. They've got everything set up to basically, it's just like they're farming deer. And the actual skill that it takes to hunt has been removed from hunting completely. And the trail cams are a big part of it. These guys set up trail cams to monitor, size and movement of deer, across the land that they're hunting. And it completely atrophies their skills that make up a real hunter. The skills of awareness, the skills of tracking, the skills of, making weapons, the skill of understanding the mood and the personality of the animal. Now it's been relegated to the fact they set these trail cams up and they just look for big set of horns. And I don't know. I just think something's messed up about that, in my opinion. I just don't like it. And as technology gets more and more out there, it gets back to just what I said. It's not very few people, I'm not saying all hunters are like this, but very few people are deer hunters anymore. They're basically deer farmers. And, from that standpoint, we're losing our skills we have as primal hunters out there. Most hunters that go out there today could not kill an animal if they had to rely on their primal skills of locating and tracking that animal and building their own weapons. They just couldn't do it. So is that a good thing? Do you guys think that that's moving the positive in the right direction? I don't, personally. And okay, now we'll go over to the Livescope a little bit. This Livescope deal, it's like, we've talked about a lot of different aspects of it as far as why I don't like it. I've talked a lot about sports getting to be an elitist sport, the cost of the sport, but let's just put that to the side for a second. Let's talk about the same thing with Livescopes that I just talked about hunting, as far as your loss of your primal skills. I'll give you guys a good example. For Sunday down there, I was fishing this one creek down there. I had an on the water lesson on Sunday, and I was trying to stay out of everybody's way. I wasn't going to get around to anybody that was in the tournament. So I got back in this one creek about 2/3 of the way back in there, and I was fishing, and one of the guys in the tournament, in the $1 million tournament, pulled up probably 100 yards from me, and was right in the middle of the creek. Didn't even pick up a rod, trolling motor on high, and he's just in and out zooming, trolling motor on high, looking down at that Livescope. That's the only thing he did. He just, his head never got up off that Livescope for probably, I'm going to guess, 25 or 30 minutes. I never saw him make a cast. He just was looking at the Livescope. And I got thinking about that, and I said, that, I just can't stand that. I said, that is not what fishing is meant to be. There is nothing about what that dude's doing, which that's what most of the guys that did good in the tournament did. And I'm not saying that he's the only one. Most of the guys did it. But I just thought to myself and reaffirmed the fact, it's like, I'm so glad I don't have a Livescope on my boat, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to go out of the water and be oblivious to anything that's going on in nature. This guy that I was watching, he was completely unaware of anything going on around him except looking at that Livescope. There was no paying attention to the water, the wind, the sunlight angle, the conditions, anything up on the bank, anything around him, except focused on that screen 100%. Do you guys think that's cool? Is that what fishing is? And for the tournament to get dominated by Livescope, for people to win that kind of money, I just thought it was such an insult to the bass myself. Not only with the Livescope can they see the fish moving out there, they can pick the size of the fish. So those guys that are good at Livescopes, they can, bypass fish they think is too small with it. So in the same sense as what we talked about, the skills of the hunters are atrophying, it's the same with the bass anglers. You get guys out there that have become so reliant most of the year on this Livescope that they don't understand anything about bass positioning, movement, what it takes to trigger strikes. It's simply become a commercial venture to find where the bass are, and it's basically like throwing a shad net out after them when you find them there. The catching and the fishing part of it has taken a back seat to just the technology. So, and then that gets back to the title of the video, guys. It's it's the dumbing down of bass anglers and hunters in this country, and it's something that it doesn't have to happen. I mean, the tournament organizers across the country, or the Bass Pro Shops tournament, they could have said, "Hey, this is a no live scope deal." That's just the way it is. And hunting is not necessarily a competitive sport, but it's sort of the same thing with the game cams and the drones and all that type of stuff. I mean, back to the hunting a little bit, what is the attraction of hunting? It's not even hunting at that point. If you have a piece of land and you put food plots in there and you narrow it down to, these fish are these deer are going to come into these food plots, and whether you've got corn put out or you got beans or whatever, you're setting up, edge-oriented stands right where these deer are going to come to. You've got your game cams out there to monitor the size and the number of the animals that come in. Again, some guys are using drones to follow them. At that point, it's not hunting anymore. It's just farming or killing. And this is a little bit of a rant, sort of like all over the place, but man, I'm just getting sick of it. I'm getting sick of the primal respect that comes from fishing and hunting getting taken away from us by technology. I mean, and that's what's happening. It's not that it's making it funner or easier to fish or hunt. It's taking away what the intrinsic value of fishing and hunting is to us, because we don't need to fish and hunt to survive anymore. I mean, it's not like all these guys saying, "Oh, I've got to hunt to get meat in the freezer." No, you don't have to do that. By the time you spend the money that it costs to go deer hunting, you could probably buy a side of beef cheaper than you could get deer. I understand the fact that people like to eat wild game a lot of times, but the point that I'm trying to make in here is that we've lost touch of what fishing and hunting is really all about on a primal, instinctual level. And I just think that it's a good idea if we take a step back, go back, 1,000 years before, we were right now, and adopt some of those methods and techniques and attitudes. Adopt some of the stuff about becoming expert trackers and, learning how to make your own weapons and, everything that comes with being a real hunter, because there's a difference between being a hunter and a killer. Don't confuse the two, because they're not the same. Hunting and killing are two separate things. And in my opinion, just killing for the sake of killing is not a good deal at all. So anyway, guys, just a quick little rant. I was really disappointed to see the Livescope dominate at Table Rock like I knew it was going to, but it did. And it just sort of struck me weird watching that one dude, the way he was out there. I'm not even going to call it fishing. I'm going to call it just looking, because he wasn't doing any fishing. He was just looking. And I don't like it, man. I just don't like it at all. I'm probably going to keep bitching and complaining about it. So, anytime I put something up about a game cam or live cam, you can or a game camera or a live scope, you can probably pretty much guess what's going on here. But just an opinion piece today. Wanted to run that by you guys. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think it's cool that deer hunting's turned into deer farming, and you can use trail cams and drones and, bait those deer to come in and, set up in a $3,000 heated stand and blast them away? Or would you rather nap arrowheads and track a deer for 3 weeks before you took it? Or same with fishing. Would you rather run up the river and have to pay close attention to the angle of the bank and the angle of the sun and throw a spinnerbait down the side of a log and have to have everything absolutely perfect to generate that strike before you actually caught that fish? Or do you think it's cool just to kick your trolling motor in high and stare at a video game screen looking for bass to throw out a shad net on? So let me know what you guys think about that. I know a lot of you guys are probably going to say I'm full of it, and a lot of you guys are going to agree with me, but I'd be curious to hear your comments either way, backed up by why you feel like that, So just a few 2 cents worth here. So anyway, guys, rant over. Thanks for tuning in. Much appreciated, and we'll be back later. See you.